So, welcome back to your first edition of the Theatres of Dreams podcast for 2026. There's not much been going on, really. And with me, as usual, is Erin Carroll and Harry Morell. First of all, guys, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too, Rod.
I'll tell you what, it's a happy new year for certain Manchester United fans in the stratosphere that we live. But for me, it's more of a put my car in for the MOT today, and it sort of feels that's what the club needs. It needs someone to say, look, there's a failure there. Get some new tyres, sort your act out, and pay a little bit of money, and actually get someone decent into the club. Because when we got the news yesterday, if I'm honest, I was shocked. I thought it might have been just a slap on the wrist, maybe take him aside, a little chat in the director's box saying, look, you can't be saying that. But to get rid of Amorin, he's clearly enjoyed it because he looked absolutely looked like he was on cloud nine when he was leaving his Cheshire home yesterday with his wife. So he certainly seems to have a lot of weight taken off his shoulders. It just, for me, I feel like as a United fan, there's so much more weight and so much more pressure now added onto this season. We're sixth at the moment. If that goes out the window, is it because we sacked the manager? Is it because of the players? Or are we just going back through this cycle again and again and again?
So, I guess the question is, was this a late Christmas gift? Or was this a really terrible start to the year? Now, over the weekend, of course, we played Leeds and he had that press conference on Friday where he pretty much publicly slagged off his bosses. And then he had that press conference after the game where, again, he pretty much slagged off his bosses. And he also took a pop at some people in the media, Gary Neville, for example, right? Now, I wrote to the other guys on the Friday podcast at 8:30 yesterday, and I said, I think he's gone. I think he's actually manufactured this because you do not publicly slag off your bosses in whatever industry you're in or whatever organization and expect not to suffer some consequences. I think he's actually looked for a way out because
Mm-hmm.
he's decided he can't work in it.
Yeah, he's definitely manufactured his own P45 there, or at least brought it earlier than what we thought. Obviously, you can't. You see the Chelsea manager, what, 5 days before Amorim went, he wins manager of the month, runs his mouth, gets sacked. Amorim gets manager of the month, runs his mouth, gets sacked. And it's the club's trying to say that it was, they're trying to obviously spin their own sort of way of sort of presenting this disaster, because that's really what it is. It's a breakdown in communications. It's a breakdown in trust, and it's one of those where I'm sure the decision was made on Friday night, probably because he wouldn't have gone into that press conference in the way that he did. Was he not trying to sort of go out on his own accord? Because obviously, if he leaves, if he resigns, he doesn't get any money at all. And this is the thing with Manchester United. Some people say it's a poison chalice. It's the most difficult job in the world. For every manager, I think I'd be licking my lips for that job, because if I go and I get the wins and I get the performances, I'll be known as the person who saved Manchester United from a dire 13 years. If I go and I fall flat on my face, I can blame the club, because 9 times out of 10, the club is at fault. And also I get millions of pounds that I can go off on my jolly old way. And because it was the club's fault, I can go and get a job elsewhere. So I think for me, it's disappointing the fact that we have lost Ruben Amorim, who was such a cool head, somebody who wouldn't be afraid to poke his head above the parapet, wouldn't be afraid to say the things that other managers wouldn't say. Like, who as a manager would say this is the worst United team ever? This is somebody who wanted to rip up the ethos, the identity, and start afresh. So yeah, I think it's disappointing for fans, but for Amorim, he's going to be smiling because he'll be getting offered a job elsewhere, probably in the Bundesliga or something like that. Go and win a trophy and renew his stock once again, because I don't think it's taken too much of a hit.
Aaron, what's the blue side of the city and the other fan base is saying about this? I mean, do you look at this and go, yeah, this is just classic United of the last, what, 10, 12 years, whatever?
I think the blue side of Manchester's definitely a tiny bit disappointed that he's gone. I think they believed he should have had a lifetime contract, but it's unfortunately not the case for us. But no, I think the way I look at it is that I think the way that he went into that press conference, you've seen it before with him though. He's not afraid to run his mouth and say things that other managers won't. And there's been a couple of occasions where he's come out with a few controversial comments about the club. Obviously, when he said it's probably the worst team they've seen in years, and he wants to like just rip it up and start again. But I think the way that he's gone about that in his press conference against Leeds is that he said that because he doesn't want to admit that the job was too much for him. I think this is the way I look at it. I think you appointed him too early. He wanted to come in the summer, didn't he, and start completely fresh. I think you threw him in a little bit at the deep end mid-season where you were kind of already having a poor you were having a poor season at that point where you were already pretty much low down in the table. I think you threw him in a little bit. But then again, I think his stubbornness has also cost him a bit because he doesn't want to change the way he plays. That really hasn't helped you. But I think the blue side of Manchester just seems a bit disappointed that he's not staying around a little bit longer, and especially not staying around till the 17th when we play you next.
If I can just chime in on that stubbornness, I think that is a part of what has gotten the sack, more in terms of that's the way that they've spun it. Because if you're bringing in a manager like Amorin, you've seen exactly what he's done at Sporting. He's had some great success. He's brought a historic club who has struggled back to the top of their respective league, and it's the sort of the manager you wanted. I don't think the job was too much for him. I think it's sort of like almost like a house of cards sort of situation where everybody on this United board is trying to be bigger than the other. They're trying to be bigger than Sir Jim, always trying to be in shot of everything. And obviously, when you've got a manager like Ruben Amorim, and I keep using the phrase manager, he wanted to be a manager. He wanted to be instrumental pulling all the strings. When he was told that wouldn't happen, he then, I think, sort of panicked and just sort of stuck with this system and tried to get the basics right first, which I think you can sort of understand before you're trying to completely start messing around with all the different formations. At least get one absolutely nailed on. But yeah, for me, I don't think the job was too much for him. I think there's just an underlying issue at the football club. My biggest concern is we've got Darren Fletcher in, who, don't get me wrong, he's a brilliant under 18 coach. He knows how to nurture youth talent, and where he is in that current role, it's perfect. What I think will happen is he'll get 3 wins or whatever. We'll start saying give him the contract, and we'll go around in this cycle again and again and again. And then just a question that I could sort of lead to you, Rod, is Erin mentions stubbornness there. If you look at all the managers who've been linked with United, not a single one of them, I would say, is a yes man, really. Every single one of them has their own bravado, their own character, their own sort of I'm the best person, because that's what you've got to be as a manager. And clearly what Manchester United want is they just want someone there to run the training sessions and do a few scripted interviews.
See, I think his language at the weekend was interesting because he started referring to himself as the manager, right? Mm-hmm. And actually, you know, if you go way back, I think Manchester United might have said, and they keep on saying it's Ineos. Of course, they run football operations now. Ineos might have said, we recruited you as a coach, right? And therein lies one fundamental different attitude, or one fundamental different philosophy in how you're doing it. He isn't like Ferguson managing every aspect of the club, right? He's going to, but that also means that he comes with a football style that you buy into and you support, right? So, but the thing that opens to me is really. Football's moving into this new era where you have coaches, they coach a system, and does that mean that they are incapable of coaching any other system, right? Because his downfall has been his desire to only play a 3-5-2-1 type formation, right? Or at least, and when he went to a flat back 4, we got a result, and then he went back again. Now, it opens up all sorts of questions to me, because I've heard Harry Winter talk yesterday about United as a 4-4-2 club, right? Well, why is that? Is that because we just like wingers? I mean, should a club not be able to change? But at the same time, should a manager, a coach, not be able to change between a flat back 4, a back 3, you know?
I think that's a brilliant point you've made there, because Manchester United have always been associated with the 4-4-2 sort of style thing, playing the youngsters, and that's always been our identity. And clearly, we say that about the football club. That's how we have to stay. Yet when we've got a manager who wants to stay in the 1 point, it's absurd the fact that he won't change his situation. I think that's a bit bit of an interesting sort of argument there. But for me, as Erin says, I think he came in at the wrong time, because if you look at this Premier League system, or this league so far, we're 4 points off fourth in the league, and we're also 4 points off 14. So this is a sort of league where, even as you say, play the 4-4-2, simple football, almost like Ollie Ball. I'm not saying I want him as the permanent thing, but sort of like his style of manager, exciting, quick attacking football, and you get those results, and you see you go up. Whereas with Amorin, I feel like his system, say if he was still in, it won't win in the Premier League this season. It won't necessarily win it the next season, but maybe 3 seasons from now, I think that system would be the sort of thing where a lot of teams would be thinking that's how you sort of are to play this football, or how you can win games. But the issue is we didn't give him the time to get the fundamentals right, and also we crucially didn't give him the backing in the window to buy the players to support that system, because clearly what the issue is, we didn't have enough players to play this formation that he wanted. So when with the wing backs, he's only brought in one player, Patrick Dorgu, and that almost feels like he was sort of like a Swiss Army knife sort of purchase. Like, he can play left wing back, but obviously he's better at right wing back. But then if something happens, we've got a player who can play in different positions. So it's almost trying to be like a compromising sort of signing. For me, the concern is the fact that Ineos have brought this man in with this system. And when you sign this player, he must have gone, right, I'm going to need a lot of backing here to buy the players that we need. Because clearly, yes, they did a tremendous job getting rid of that so-called bomb squad and clearing up the wages, but we didn't recruit back in to suit that system, and we look very weak and we look very depleted. So this is what. So my plea to the owners is, please take your time with your next appointment. Decide the style of football you want. Decide the style of DNA of football you want, and then make a list of how much it's realistically going to cost. Don't sort of like shortchange it. Say exactly how much it's going to cost, because otherwise, now we've got 6 months where we're going to use players from a previous system, but we want to see results, which we're not going to see realistically if we had Fletcher and we had Zidane in, or whoever with that players. Are they really going to get a major change? What needs to happen is there needs to be that overhaul. And this is what I was saying 14 months ago when we were talking on the podcast when Amorin came in. I was thinking this is a perfect opportunity. We've got a man with a clear vision, identity, everything. The board's got to back him. And they haven't done that. They've sacked him mid-window. And I just think we can't, whoever we bring in, we can't have the same cycle again, because before we know it, it'll be 20 managers in 15 years.
But let's come back to the first part of this. Is I actually believe he orchestrated his own sacking by being very clear on what he was communicating pre the Leeds game and post the Leeds game. You cannot come out in it doesn't matter if you were in Radio Walty or you're in Microsoft or Apple, you can't come out and criticize publicly the people who pay your wages in that way. And he undermined their authority by doing that. Friday and Sunday. So the only way they had to instill and promote their authority was to sack him. Now, I personally believe he orchestrated that. I believe that he has wanted out, and he used that opportunity. He orchestrated his own dismissal. And let's face it, he's going to be paid for another, 18 months or something. He's not going to be, but I wonder whether he actually started to realize this job's too big for me. I can't do this. I can't handle this.
I don't think with this narrative of it's too much for him, I just think he was led blindly down an alley. He was promised one thing, and then the board have completely changed their stance on what they're going to provide for him and this project. This is why I think we've seen such a change. And I know he's always been vocal. He's been very, very on the nose with his comments, but I think we really did see a change in that press conference. And there's obviously you always see like pictures from behind the scenes. There was apparently a discussion with Wilcox and Amorim on Friday, which ended quite hostilely. So I feel like that's been the straw which has broken the camel's back. Not the fact that the job was too much for him, but how the circumstances of that role, the circumstances of where he lies in that club have changed. And this is what worries me with the sort of person that we're going to bring in next. Is, are we going to promise one thing and then change it? Because I sort of commend Amorin with how he went about in that press conference, because when we brought in when we brought in Ineos, we were thinking everything's going to change now. We're going to see changes both on the pitch and off the pitch. They talked about a stadium which is being built. We haven't heard anything about that for the last 6 months. We said that we're going to bring a director of football in who's going to have a clear vision. We bring one person in. We then sat them off because they wanted Gareth Southgate, but we wanted Amorin. And then now we've seen as though we've made another mistake. So there's clearly no direction in football there. We've spoken about the academy. We wanted it to be a driving force again of the academy bringing into the first team. Yet we sack the head of the academy as well. So clearly this is not an on-pitch issue. This is a whole systemic issue around the club. And I feel like we're going to say it time and time and time again. Something has to change. And clearly it's not with the manager. I don't know what it is, but I think with the way that Amorin has gone about things, he's shown that it's not just the person who wears the tracksuit, who says to the head coach, who says to the manager. Clearly it's something else.
Can I just jump in on that really quickly with what you said? So obviously you said that he's orchestrated his own sacking with his comments in his press conference. I just want to compare it to September of last year. And you'll remember Nuno Espirito Santo was sacked at Forest for the exact same thing. I think it's similar in that situation, that they've realised that the issues with the club are not with the players as such. They're higher up, and it's like poison. It just drips down from the top. So I think a lot of managers will start to probably come out. I mean, Maresca's done the same thing, hasn't he, really? He's come out and said, there's problems. I don't feel supported. I can't do this anymore. Where Nuno's done the same thing, and Amorim now becomes the third manager to be sacked for the exact same reason. I think in a way it's sort of good that they're calling out the issues, because it shows that obviously what you don't see behind the scenes, the issues with the owners that obviously aren't probably as widespread reported. I think there was a thing said yesterday that I was reading, that he'd had a meeting with your director of football and it ended in a shouting match at Carrington between the two of them, which I think for you guys probably isn't the best look with the way things have gone over the last 10, 15 years.
But you know, I come back and I think that did he accept that he was going to be a coach, right? So if you walk into any job, you've got terms and conditions, you've got rules and responsibilities, and basically, if somebody turned around and says you're going to be a manager of a retail store, and then they turn around and say you're going to be head of department of that retail store, there's a big difference between the two, right?
Yeah.
And if they sold him and they said to him you're going to be the manager, and then he ended up being head coach, then fundamentally big. But at the same time, if he thought he was manager, but they're referring to him as head coach, he should have qualified that earlier, you know, and we don't really know the answer to this. I thought it was interesting. He pushed this management thing at the press conference on Sunday, and it clearly was something that irked him. And I clearly he has no relation. He had no relationship with the likes of Wilcox, etc. But I come back to the fact that I think our football department wanted to buy certain players. They have certain targets they want to buy, and they seem wanting to be patient to try to get those players, the right players for the right system. And he's probably he was a little bit frustrated by this, saying, I just need cover. Right. And of course, with AFCON, it wasn't a great time because that whole right side of Mbembo and Ahmed was gone. And of course, the captain's been injured. It was a bad time. Right. But I just think that he has been immature in the way he's handled this a little bit, because I just think, you know, did he know what he was coming in to do, to manage? You know, I don't think his communication has been that brilliant at times. And I do believe that any manager at any time needs to be able to change their formation, change their tactics, depending upon sometimes the opposition, but depending upon the pieces in your toolkit that you've got available to you. And I'm really struggling with this idea that we recruited a 3-5-2-1 or 3-5-3 type manager, and that's the only system we should have played, because we didn't necessarily have the players to be able to play that system all the time.
Do Do you
And
think
maybe
there's
this is
something in
modern
that?
football today.
Do you think there's something in that about the fact that he wouldn't change the system? The fact that he was so stubborn that he would. I think he said something about the Pope, and then with this
Oh
system,
yeah, I've seen those.
is that because you think that he was promised one thing about being this head coach or manager and getting that backing? Do you think he was saying this is the only way I'm going to play because it's either back me in the transfer window and back this system, or he's gone? Because I think there was, I read somewhere the fact that United were going in for Semenyo, obviously we saw, and I think Manchester City have pretty much secured the signing of Semenyo. And then we were going to pay 60 million for him for the release clause, and then they wouldn't spend this money elsewhere to strengthen the squad. I think this is one of the things that has sort of brassed him off. But I think the way that I'm not trying to criticise Rod, but I don't like the immature comment now. I think what he's done there is be sort of like fight or flight sort of thing, and he's trying to show. Because remember, he's a young manager. So Jim said that he's one of the most exciting young managers, and we've seen time and time and again. Potter, for instance, went to Chelsea, and his stock has absolutely plummeted off a cliff. After he left Brighton, he was being linked to the next England job. He's clearly got to think about his own career there. With Amorin, if he did, the fact that you say he's been immature, I think he's just trying to protect himself and also crucially protect the players as well, because I think you could sort of see there was some camaraderie. If you look on social media, I know footballers and social media is something which you should never read as gospel, but you could see that there was a real sort of like a team mentality. I know that sometimes it felt like United didn't put a team out and it felt very disconnected, but it did seem like there was a unity at the club in terms of in Carrington, but then away from in the director's box, it seemed to be the divide there. I think what he's doing is a bit similar to how Ollie bowed out. Ollie bowed out with the very emotional departure, the tears and everything like that. Whereas what Amorim's done, he's gone for the very much the fiery approach, a bit like Mourinho went out with, and you can see where Mourinho's now gone on to. I think we can debate for months. I'll probably be university essays written on Amorim's tenureship and how you should depart a football club. I think he's very unfortunate the way that he's gone. I spoke on Radio Manchester last night, and I was critiqued on what I said, but I think the club is in a far better position than when we were last year, 14th compared to 6th. And you could say, well, this league is an anomaly. There's no way you can judge anything off league form. But 6 months ago, we were saying that you have to judge everything off league form. European football is nothing. It all depends on the success in the league. So it's all. We can't say, oh, it could have been this, it could have been that. I think it's a shame that we won't see what this Amorin project will lead to. But whoever comes in next, let's hope they get their time to see their project come through.
Well, you're right to pick me up about maturity. I was just struggling for a word, but I think maybe it's emotion. I think sometimes you can be. It's time to be emotional, and there's a time when emotion means that you look irresponsible, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think at times I think over the weekend his emotion caused him either he had a script and he had a plan and he's managed to that plan, he's articulated to that plan, and he's got what he wanted, right? Because there's no way you can take on the board of any football club by the media and win, right? So when he started saying what he's saying over the weekend, I fundamentally believe he knew what was going to happen. And I believe that this is it's a way out. It was a way out for him, right? Now, I guess the question I'm going to have is, will I miss him? Right? Will I miss his style of football? And I was thinking the other day, as somebody who has memory issues, right? I'm going to miss his bloody chant. I've just got it word perfect recently. And now I'm going to have to learn a whole new chant. There was a swagger I sort of liked. There was a youthfulness I sort of liked. But I did think, and this has been a problem with a number of managers, it was the same with Ten Hag, is your inability to handle press conferences and the narrative around Manchester United. It's not just about coaching a team. It's not just about transfers. It's the whole management of the narrative, etc. If you don't know how to do that very well, or you don't do it very well in the eyes of the board or the fans, you're going to really struggle. Now, he might sound around and say, I did it well because I got what I wanted out of it. But I don't think he did it well. I'm apart from the weekend. I think that's why he was a coach, not a manager, you know? But maybe he didn't get enough support from the football department above him.
Did you not like the emotion, though? Did you not like it was sort of a refreshing thing that somebody, for me, it felt like he was almost, he knew exactly what every single fan has felt for the last 13 years. And he sort of, I personally sort of liked his heart, like the fact he wore his heart on his sleeve. And with the comments after the derby, I was sort of at first thinking, oh, he's come out with what he said here because obviously it's a derby, we've got a draw, which probably was the fair result for the game. But again, you want to go to Leeds and give them a good game because regardless of what league position is, it's a big rivalry. I quite like the fact that he was so open and he showed his emotions because that's what all of us have sort of felt anyway. And at first I thought, yes, it's not what to say, but I thought you might have got a slap on the wrist and sort of go, right, this is your last warning now. You have to perform, you have to show your results, or you're out in 6 months because
I like a little bit of emotion. I like a little bit of passion more than emotion, right? I like to say a little bit of passion. But when passion becomes uncontrolled emotion, which becomes irresponsible statements, and I come back to this point, you cannot slag off the people you work for in public, right? He didn't have enough credit in the bank to do that. Ferguson could have done it after winning several titles, right? He had credit in the bank. Ruben had no credit in the bank. None at all, actually, apart from the possibility and the fact that we could have been. He didn't have enough in the bank, and I actually think that he orchestrated the weekend. He orchestrated his own exit, right? Because it's easy for him to be sacked and walked away, right? But overall, I think that I wonder whether the football department, the football directors, the overall football management team, because he was part of the management team, that they've not worked effectively. It's not worked. And that's a failure of team management. And I mean, that's a failure of the executives not to get those guys to work better. Did they try to get Wilcox and Amorin to get their heads together and just blast it out privately and get over this issue? Or did they sidetrack it, But that's a failure of the board to me, or the CEO, not to get his top team working effectively. And yeah.
I think as well, I think we've championed time and time again on this podcast. This is no longer a sport; it's a business. And if you're looking at your chief directors and your your management board, if that's not right, then the company doesn't work. It isn't in profit, and obviously profit for Manchester United should be results on the football pitch. It almost feels with this Wilcox thing, it's like Woodward's, just with a different name and a different face in the director's box. Whoever comes in, they are going to have a tremendously difficult job trying to work with these directors. And for me, I've been trying to chalk up a shortlist for the names who we could actually realistically bring in. I know everybody says, "Oh, we're Manchester United." Everyone drop a hat. Drop, like somebody was saying about Emery, he's going to walk away from Aston Villa. Is he Eckersite going to walk away from Aston Villa, who have a genuine chance to win the league? I think again we need to reset and reevaluate what our stock is actually worth. We're talking about waiting till the summer to get some of these big names in. I still think if you're giving 6 months to stew over the idea of going to Manchester United, I don't think we're going to have people knocking the door down to take that role, because we've had the Premier League experience, the cool head of Moisey who was brought in after Sir Alex. We've tried to go for that defensive style with Van Gaal, didn't work. We've tried to go for the one who wasn't afraid to put his head above the parapet with Mourinho. That relationship fell apart. We've also tried to go for the club legend with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. That hasn't worked. That's fallen apart. And obviously now we've tried to go for the young manager who has performed elsewhere bringing in this whole new ethos and this new system. That's not worked. So where do we go now? And people keep saying, "Oh, Zidane's going to come to United." Why on earth would Zizou come to
No.
United? I do not have a Scooby. So
So
I'm
it's
certainly scratching my head.
so it's 10. Have you seen that wonderful picture that somebody's done of the 10 managers, whether it be permanent managers or interim managers that we've had since
Seen that.
Alex Ferguson left? You know,
I've
it's
seen
almost
that.
like it's not quite like the dirty dozen. It's like the tarnished 10. You know, and you sort of think, you know, you look at that and think, what organization and its right mind could survive having so many people, never mind the amount of money we spent actually just compensating them? What organization could survive? How many years is it since Sir Alex left? Is it 12 or 10?
13,
Think it's
13.
13, 13
13.
years. So
Yeah,
in
yeah.
13 years, we've had 10 managers, 10 leaders of the football team. What organization could actually do well there? And the amount of money that they've wasted on this. It's just, it's incredible, absolutely incredible. But
I want.
let's talk about next steps, because we know Darren Fletcher is in for the next game, which is, I think, Burnley. Is it Wednesday night?
Yeah. Got
Uh,
Burnley on
no,
Wednesday, and then we've got FA Cup on Sunday against Brighton.
So do you? I mean, first of all, I think it's interesting because his sons are now promoted to the first team, and he went down to the 18s manager, didn't he, so that he wouldn't have to manage them. But I think that's reasonable. I think the question for me is, will that be him until the end of the season? I don't think they'll rush to appoint somebody before the end of the season. So will it be Fletcher and the football hierarchy until the end of the season, or will they try to bring in somebody as an interim after this weekend?
I think.
Go on, Erin.
I think for you guys that you get an inter. So I think you stick with Darren Fletcher for the next maybe 2 games. So you've got Burnley and Brighton FA Cup. So stick with him for the next 2 games, and then bring in someone on an interim basis till the end of the season. Just to, I mean, it's going to sound really weird, but I would, obviously, I'm not a United fan, so I can't really speak for you guys, but I would say someone like Michael Carrick. He did a decent job at Middlesbrough, didn't he? In
He's not
his
going to
in
leave
his
Middlesbrough to
managerial.
come. He's not
No,
going.
he's not under contract. He's not got a job. He left at the end of the season. So I think maybe get him until the end of the season. He did a decent job with Middlesbrough. I don't know how likely that is. But if you look at your list of potential managers, there are some mental shots on there. There's shots of Luis Enrique from PSG, but I don't think he'd leave PSG with what he's doing.
No,
Or
No,
another one that
of
you've
course
had
he would.
thrown in there, another one that you've had thrown in there before, ex-Brighton manager De Zerbi at Marseille.
That
He's
that
had
would
his name thrown in there.
that would either be a masterstroke or an absolute disaster class, and I don't know if we can afford to
Not
roll the
again.
dice again.
I think they're going to do an interim because they're definitely not going to rush this, and any manager wouldn't leave a club not knowing if United are going to make European football at the end of the season, and there's too much noise in the machine to take it over effectively. You need time over the summer to do a number of different things. It's interesting because of the 10 we've had since Fergie, of course, we've had Giggsy, we've had Solskjaer, we've had Carrick, we've had Rude in his interims. I think, do we need somebody in as an interim? Could Fletcher do it until the end of the season? Who knows? But I do think they'll not get somebody in until summertime, because the other thing, of course, is we've got the World Cup this summer.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's going to be hard to, if you're looking at the the widest scope of managers. A number of those might be currently managing international teams. They're not going to do anything until the World Cup. So it's then going to mean it's going to be a bloody rushed window over the summer trying to get somebody. If you took somebody who's managing the World Cup, they won't be available until August, which means that, how do you plan for your next season? It's interesting.
my sort of thought process is someone. I know it sounds a bit sort of like rose tinted spectacles, but get someone like Ollie in, but because the style of football that we can get out of those players, the sort of the counter attacking, exciting football. that's the sort of thing you can use with the players that we have at the moment. But I think what we have to do is, and I don't think we really did it with Amorin properly, is we need to exactly explain what your role is. And I think there needs to be a date in the contract where it goes, unfortunately, your employment will cease on this date, regardless of results, because we saw with Ollie last time, actually, he performed really well in the short term. And then we gave him the contract, and then within 6 months he was out the door. So I feel like we need to get someone like Carrick. I think that's a good shout. He's performed really well, but I think it's got to be a bit like the Ralph Ragnick thing as a short term thing, so we can actually, as I said, decide the identity and the DNA of football that we want. I think when people are saying, "Oh, Tuchel will leave the England set up for United," Willie Ecker's like, there's no way he's going to walk away from the contract that he's on with the FA and possibly getting himself an honorary knighthood, depending on how the tournament goes in the summer. A name that I would actually quite like to see is someone like Iraola from Bournemouth. I think the way that he's managed to build two decent squads with two major overhauls and still perform well in the league, I think that would be a really good appointment. I know you might say, well, look at where Bournemouth are in the league at the moment. They're down in, I believe it's 14th or 16th. Yeah, he's had so many big names which he's nurtured and found from other clubs. And then they've gone on to perform for the likes of Real Madrid. So you've got Kirkes, who's gone up to Liverpool. He's a decent player. I think Iraola as well, it would usher in a new window where it's not a big name. No offence to him. It's not like the likes of Zidane or anyone like that, or Klinsmann or someone else who we're bringing in for a big name. This is somebody who is clearly being brought in, a bit like the De Zerbi style at Brighton, to nurture a squad with a very much a shoestring budget. I think it would be a refreshing thing to see. And I think as though Iraola hasn't received as much credit as what he deserves. And I think he does deserve the opportunity at Manchester United, but crucially in the summer. Don't bring anybody in January, because how are you going to build a squad for this new manager midway through the season? You just brass him off, put more pressure on him. Come August, and then the fans will be calling for his head.
But I think the role definition, or the advert for manager, actually almost writes itself now, because of the all the context of the last few weeks, which is you're going to be a coach, you're not a manager. Number one, you're going to be working under a football department. We want you to play attacking football. So whether it's wingers or whatever, but you can't just come in with one style. It's got to be attacking style. You've got to play with youth, because one of the issues is I think Amorin was only blatantly really in using youth in the team. I don't think he massively championed that as well as he could have done, but you've got to be able to play with the youth academy, and I think that's it. And then, do you have to have had success either in England or somewhere else? Is that necessary? I would say probably it is, but you've also got to be able to handle the press well. You've got to be able to do that side of the job well.
Who would you be interested in seeing in the dugout in the summer, Rod?
Do you know, I it's not so much as an individual person, but it's more the profile of somebody, really. And I think having managed in a top league or in the EPL might help, actually, or coached, And I'm just thinking about the Celtic situation. Nonce has been sacked after, was it 13 games, and Martin's back up there again. You look at this and you sort of say, "Look, guys, it's not flipping that hard, surely." You write a role definition, you write a profile of the person you want, you agree on the characteristics, the criteria, and you go and find somebody who matches those criteria as best you can. You interview them to see if their personality is good and if you can work with them, you like their style. But the criteria is the criteria, and that's the way you do it. You take the emotion out. I don't know at the moment. I can't. I think the fact that you're going with a coach means that you can go with somebody who's a little bit less mature. because they're going to be supported if they properly buy into it with a football department, with a director of football, etc., etc. But that means the director of football needs to step up more, maybe be more vocal, maybe be out and give them a bit more protection. So it works both ways. If we're going to go down this approach, I think that there are roles in there that need to step up and protect the coach more than maybe he was protected. But I think interim to the end of the year is the right thing. We get the guys from AFCON back again, and we create a system that makes the most of the players we've got. We've missed Mbeumo, we've missed what's his name, plays on the right.
Ahmad.
Missed Diallo.
Ahmad. Yeah, and we have. And there's some players that shouldn't be playing either.
I think as well. This is the other reason why I'm sort of scratching my head is I don't think it's scratching my head, but more it shows the fact that it was a complete breakdown in communication. If half the squad isn't there, I think that really does I think that sort of cements the decision. But we mentioned AFCON a few weeks ago, and we're saying this is the perfect opportunity for Mainu to come into the squad. I feel as though if Mainu had stayed fit, maybe we would have had a complete different outcome, both in results and also press conference we received at Leeds.
Well, it was the perfect opportunity for Mainu, and the fact that it's either bad luck, or bad management, so
Sure, he'll be pleased.
Penny for his thoughts. If Fletcher starts both his sons in a midfield pivot without Mainu coming into the squad, that would be an interesting thing to see at Burnley midweek.
Yeah, do you know? I just think it's such a waste of a good chant, Harry. I can't help but worry about that. I really like that chant. There's been so many chants. I love the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer chant. But this is a nightmare.
I think from a Blue perspective, Rod, I think we're gonna miss chanting about him never winning you any trophies again. I think that's just one thing that we might miss a little bit on the Blue side of Manchester.
All I'm saying is just be ready for it, because you're very much at its highs at the moment. When Guardiola goes, it's going to be those shoes are going to be so heavy to fill.
I mean, to be fair,
mentally prepare yourself.
Don't worry, I am, because I mean, there's a talk of him going at the end of this year, at the end of his end of this season, isn't there? Which, to be fair, I wouldn't be surprised with. He spent 10 years at the club. He's won everything there is to win, probably numerous times. He's won everything there is to win numerous times. There's not much left for him to do, but I think he'd want to go out on a high. I mean, you look at the table now, 6 points behind. It's only January. How many times have we seen Arsenal bottle it come April, May time? Is shocking, but I think I'm just saying that on the record. It has happened before.
Let's just move away from Manchester United and talk a little bit about the football and where we're at in the Premier League come the halfway point.
Do we have to?
Well, I mean, I actually have been saying recently that whoever is coming out with more momentum post Christmas will possibly go on to win the league, right? And actually, the good thing I think for Arsenal is that they managed to get through Christmas well, and that 6 point lead, that two games lead, I think could give them enough momentum to go all the way now. Now, don't get me wrong. It's very competitive, but it's going to be either City or Villa to challenge them. As much as I think Villa have done fantastically, and it's Emery there, isn't it? Unai Emery, really, really well, and they'll be happy with a top three finish, for goodness sake. But I honestly believe that at the turn, which we are at 19 games in, 20 games in now, actually, but we're at the turn. I think Arsenal are set up to just march to the end. I really do. I think that 6 points is a big 6 points. I mean, don't get me wrong, City breathing down your neck is massive, really massive. Yeah. But I think Arsenal have managed to get through Christmas quite well in a busy period, and I have been saying for ages, whoever after Christmas is still in the lead and with a 6 point gap, I Look, I'm no football expert at all, as these podcasts probably easily tell. But I just think it is about momentum now. And I don't know how many players Arsenal have away at AFCON, etc. But they've got through that
Not a
period,
lot.
So
I think
it's interesting.
I think I'm a little bit skeptical about that because obviously I know Arsenal got through Christmas that period relatively well. However, they were relying on a lot, and I mean a lot of late goals to get through that. I mean, Brighton pushed them for a good game. I mean, a lot of them, if you notice, a lot of Arsenal's goals have come from own goals. Like in that December, there was countless own goals. I mean, Wolves pushed them for a good game. I think Wolves were very, See,
Mhm.
Wolves, I think, have been unlucky with some of the results they've had recently. I think it's just defensive slip-ups costing them.
But here's the thing, Aaron, right?
Mhm.
I think most teams who win the Premiership or any league rely on a certain period of a bit of luck and actually
Yeah,
very close results.
100%.
And those close results are about your mindset and your ability to dig in, etc. Now the question is having it at the halfway point great, or would you rather have it as you're getting closer to the end and you get over the line, right? So the big thing is, do Arsenal manage to consolidate and then get back into the style, having had that period where it's been a little bit more, a wee bit of luck, a bit more fortuitous, they've got through? Because you could turn around and say that's championship winning form.
Yeah,
Harry, what do
it
you think?
is.
But
Go
I
on.
was going to sort of say, wasn't it Sir Alex who said that the season doesn't start until April? I think that's one thing we do. That just might be me being an embittered Manchester United fan, wanting anybody other than Arsenal to win the league. But it's just the way you look at that league table at the moment, and the Arsenal, yes, they are points ahead, but what it might come down to is goal difference. And currently, City and Arsenal are neck and neck on goal difference, and it's all these fine
Yeah.
margins. I completely echo what Erin's saying. I think the fact that they have been lucky with a lot of late goals, but if we as when we see the season go on and the fatigue starts to kick in, that's where we see the quality of Manchester City and also crucially the depth of City's squad. I know that City have just lost
Oh
Bardiol with
God.
a leg break, but they've got this. The thing is with City, they're so comfortable they can easily bring another player in there. Especially when you start to get towards the tail, when other competitions start to come to a close. You've got the League Cup coming up for them. Arsenal would love to win a trophy. It's a bit like Spurs. Doesn't matter what name it says on that trophy, as long as they can say we've won
As
something.
long as they
You've
get
got the
it.
League Cup coming up. You've got the FA Cup coming up as well, a competition that Arsenal love to win and they'd love to increase their gap on. You've also got the Champions League, and if you've seen with what Guardiola's done with the Champions League, you've seen him change his style. Last season,
Yeah.
with it being the new group stage, Guardiola wanted to win the group, thinking that we'd have a better seeding for the knockout stages. But it doesn't matter where you finish, be it first or eighth, you're still going to be put in the exact same pool for games. So I feel like as the season goes on, it wouldn't surprise me if Arsenal do bottle it. I sort of hope they do, but at the same point, it's the best chance they've ever given themselves. So and if it doesn't go their way, it's probably because they've thrown it away. But as much as I don't like City and I don't like Arsenal, for me, I feel as though Aston Villa's got to win the league. Can you imagine that as a story? That would be picture perfect.
It would. See, the way that I look at it is if you remember 23-24 when City won the four in a row, Arsenal were at this point in January six. I think they were more than 6 points clear at this point. I think it might have been nine points clear come this point. They spent 248 days at the top of the table. City spent, I think it was 72 and still went on to win it. But the thing is, though, as you said, Rod, would you rather have it just like outright win it, or would you rather it go down? I'm one of these people that would rather it go down to the wire. I think it makes it more exciting.
Mhm.
Because, I mean,
Hmm.
how many times, though, have we seen City do that in recent times? You look at 2012, Aguero ripped it from your hands on the last day. We ripped it from Liverpool on the last day against Villa, winning 3-2, Ilkay Gundogan. We ripped it from Arsenal, I think, the game before the last game of the season. I think Arsenal had to lose and we would win, and we would have to win the last game. We did. I think I'd rather it go down to the wire, but then again, I think we've just had Sunderland and Sunderland haven't lost at home. I think is it all I'm right in saying all season they've not lost at home.
Mhm.
They
Yeah.
pushed us for a good game. And frankly, on Sunday, we were just not good enough. Second half, we were just not good enough. And I think we've got to recruit now in January. I know you mentioned squad depth, Harry, but we've got, I think it's 8 players out injured and 2 at AFCON. So that's 10 players missing. Gvardiol, one of our most instrumental ones, he's now out probably until the end of the season. He's got to have surgery come the end of this week. But I think I'd rather it go down to the wire this year. But I really think Villa could be in with a chance, because they're sneaking up there.
Yeah, they really
I
are.
think
I would love
actually
it. I was going to say, Rod, do you remember? It's just throwing it back a bit. Do you remember on Match of the Day when it used to be the last day of the season, and that Match of the Day episode used to be brilliant, where the top of the table wasn't decided, the bottom of the table wasn't decided, anybody could win it. This is what we are missing in the Premier League, and they're saying it's the most exciting league. Last season, the only real excitement is where the European places were going to finish.
Yeah.
I'd love to see a little bit more competitiveness. All I'm saying is as well, United are 17 points off Arsenal. Could it be Project 21 under Darren Fletcher? Or is that just me being a little bit in dreamland?
Harry, I think you've still punch drunk from the Christmas period, actually.
Probably
But
am. Probably am.
I think it's what was I going to say? It's set up to be a bit of a mad dash in the second half, and I guess what you've got is the DNA of City knowing how to get it over the line.
Yeah.
And I think it'll ultimately. I would love to actually look at the predictions of the 18 games to the end of the season, or 17 games to the end of the season, because I think ultimately it comes down to who are each team playing, and what's that team that they're playing really got to win or lose, because it could be, I haven't looked at that yet. And I'd love to see the fixtures for Arsenal City through to the end of the season, because it could be the way that the fixtures play out that determines really who wins.
Just to say, I know that a lot of people like to use the Opta computer as some form of sort of like direction. Currently, Aston Villa have got 4.21% chance. Manchester City, believe it or not, only have 10.91% of a chance, and Arsenal are predicted with 85%. So there's still a possibility, but as we say, it's one of these things where this season has been the most wide open season we've ever seen in the Premier League. The fact that United could go down to 14th in one weekend, or we could go into European places, I feel like it is going to be one of those which will sneak up on us and surprise us.
Yeah, and let's switch it away from the EPL, because we could talk even more. But let's just talk about Ulti over the Christmas period. It was a mixed period, was it not?
It was indeed. I went to pretty much all of the games over the Christmas period, or the majority of them. So I did the Rochdale game. That was not good. Then again, that is Rochdale. We've kind of been accustomed to losing to Rochdale over the last few years, and I think it seems every time we play them, we seem to concede 3 against them, or at least near that much. Wasn't so good. Halifax on Boxing Day. I did that one at the Shea. It was an interesting game. I don't think we didn't play badly, and I don't think we deserved to lose. I think a point would have been fair, but then again, it's just defensive mistakes costing us again, which it seems to be the same story all season, doesn't it, Harry? It just seems to be little defensive mistakes or little mistakes here and there that cost us. I mean, Ollie Crankshaw seems to have kicked himself into form after the Scunthorpe game. Honestly, I don't think, and I'm going to say this, I don't think the man scores normal goals. I don't think he just every goal he seems to hit, he'll cut in off his left and he'll kill it. And then the York City game, that was heartbreaking. I mean, that's a 6-year streak of that is the first time in 6 years York have beaten us. They hadn't beaten us since opening day of the league in 2019. And then we'll get to the Morecambe game. Rod, you saw this one, didn't you? Called off 5 minutes before kick-off.
I mean, it's funny because I was out and about Altrincham, and I drove past the club at about 1:30, even maybe 1 o'clock, and I was quite taken by how many people were down there. There was a really good pre-game atmosphere, and there was a lot of people because it's, of course, over Christmas. There was very little Premiership games on, etc. And then I drove back at about 2:45. and I was thinking I might just walk down and actually go and see the game. And so and there was a lot of people around. Then I tuned in to Radio Alty, Radio Robbins, and I thought we got no game on. What's going on? Have we, we've got a technical fault, and checked out with the guys. And they went, no, the game's been called off, and I was on my way down. So I mean, there's lots you could say about that, in terms of you got to feel for the Morecambe fans, and there were
Oh
a
yeah,
lot of them. There were a
100%.
lot of them.
There was
Um,
there was a fair few. I'd say at least 300-400 of them. But I did feel sorry for them because in that situation, see the thing is the way I look at it, it wasn't the club's fault. It's not on the club.
yeah,
It wasn't their decision. They wanted the game on as much as everyone else in that ground did.
of
But
course you do. It's a
the
big
re
money
the
earner
referee
as well.
ultimately the call lies with the referee and he left it miles too late to
And
say.
it was only one part of the pitch as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, so Harry, I don't. So do you know where our media area is at the back of the main
Hmm.
stand? Do you know the area
Yeah.
like on the pitch just in front of that main stand? It was all frozen in that
Hmm.
corner because it just gets no sunlight. Because the
Hmm.
main stand covers it all. There's just nothing there.
We need to
Yeah.
get sponsored by some hair drying company because you could
We
have
we
had.
have a heat lamp on it, and
Well, I
it's.
I believe so, but obviously not powerful enough. We could have gone across the road to the hairdressers, said to them, "Bring out some of your hair dryers," and just pointed on the pitch.
I said the corner that it was, you can literally drive a car on, and this happened. I think it was 2017. Altrincham had to play on a Tuesday night, otherwise we'd be out the FA Trophy. Bognor Regis away, and they called it off 4 times, whilst Altrincham fans were there because of a frozen pitch. Do you know what they did as a solution? They got 8 cars, drove them onto the pitch, left the engines running, melted it, got the game played.
There you go. That
Happy
that's
days.
that's
Yeah.
happy
Yeah.
days. Can I ask just about Alti because I'm looking at the table now and they're now lying in 16th. Now I'm sure the last time I checked the table for Christmas they were closer to top 10. They're on the slide, are they?
Again, yeah, close to relegation again with sitting
Yes.
16th. I think it did help a little bit in that some teams below us did lose. But then again, it's not looking good. We're only 3 points off relegation. I mean, it's such a tight bottom half of the National League. I mean,
It
Hmm.
is.
if you lose like in the top 10, you come dropping significantly. I mean, it's going to be a tight squeeze for relegation. But I mean, the way I look at it, Rod, if we don't play, we can't lose. We're still unbeaten in
Certainly.
2026 and haven't conceded a goal yet. So
Can I ask?
things are looking good.
Can I ask? Is it so they've the goal difference is -11 at the moment, which is one of the worst, but it's almost relegation form, but not quite. Would you sum up the first half of the season as being about not taking chances, not scoring goals, or not being strong enough at the back? What would you sum it up as?
I'd just describe it as dreadful. Just dreadful. I mean, I don't even think it was the first half of the season. I think it spans back to February of 2025. Everything started to go downhill after that. I mean, we lost 2 players to ACL injury and everything just seemed to go downhill. But I think a lot of it was recruitment. We lost 2 massive players in Regan Linney and Alex Newby, didn't replace them properly. And I think the players we've brought in just they don't fit the system that we want to play. And I feel sorry for Neil Gibson at the moment because the players that he's got, that's not his team. He's inherited a previous team from Phil Parkinson. And don't get me wrong, I love Parky. I love everything he did for the football club, but he's inherited someone else's team, and I think that's part of the struggle. But I think a lot of it, yeah, we don't take our chances properly. I mean, at Halifax, we had several chances we could have taken, but were either saved or missed. Scunthorpe was probably the only highlight I've got so far. It's probably the only memorable game that will live in my memory at the moment. FA Cup, we simply were not good enough. We went 2-0 up, and I know you were there, Harry. It just was not good enough. But no, I think a lot of it is just down to missed chances and a team Gibson's inherited that's not his. And I think we need a few signings coming in, hopefully.
So what's Aldi's next game? I'm trying to look because it's FA Cup this weekend. I don't think they're involved, are they?
Nope.
So they've got a break as well. So they've got when's their next game?
The next game, as it stands, is Hartlepool, but I'd assume Morecambe would be rearranged before then
Hmm.
because of the
Yeah,
postponement. We've got, you see, though, you look at that running that we've got now, that's not good.
it's bad.
Hartlepool are
It's bad.
high flyers. Forest Green are challenging for the title. Boreham Wood are sat top of the table, and Carlisle away at the end of the month. That's 4 games
Mhm.
that we need to. Do you know what though? I'd be happy with a draw in any of them four, just as long as we don't get
Yeah.
consistently beaten.
I think it concerns me because we've missed our opportunities, and I just don't think. I always try to be an optimist with football, but it's just looking at that fixture. It's where's the points going to come in? You could maybe argue when we play Wealdstone on the 10th of Feb, or possibly Woking on the 14th of Feb, but that's a whole calendar month. We've got difficult games, and yeah, as you say, maybe there'll be a few more frozen pitches. Either way, it's still prolonging the inevitable if you're playing Carlisle. It's with the National League, as we said as well, it's so up and down that that month could consolidate the entire season, and that's what does concern me. I think I'm very much in the same ballpark as you, Erin, where there are some fleeting moments of optimism when you look at the likes of Ollie Crankshaw coming into form, and you look that we are creating chances. It's just crucially we're not taking them. So even if it is a case that we do get beaten, but we give them a good game, I will feel a lot more reassured. But it's definitely
It's just the concern.
2026 will be the start of it. Will be a dry January. Be very,
It
very, very,
defines the
very bleak.
season. It defines the
100%,
season, and I
It's
think
a
100%.
dry
And
a dry January in every way. Then Harry, it could be dry of goals, it could be dry of points for
oh,
a lot
don't
of our
say
teams.
that. I don't think I could
hopefully it'll
handle that.
be yeah, hopefully it'll be dry of tears as well. But we just have to see where the two clubs finish up.
So there's a few Premiership games midweek this week. Manchester United go to Burnley on Wednesday night. City are at home to Brighton. Newcastle Leeds will be an interesting game as well. So those are some of the games on Wednesday night. I think the Burnley United and the Newcastle Leeds are the two televised games. Then there's Arsenal versus Liverpool. Just a small matter of that. That's got to be a big game on Thursday night, 8 o'clock, and then we're into FA Cup weekend, starting on Friday night. And who have United got there?
We've got
Right.
Brighton. Brighton, yeah. I would have. It's going to be an interesting one. I was saying I would quite like Mac, just because there's always good to beat Macclesfield, especially when it's televised as well. But yeah, let's just say I think United desperately need a good bit of luck and a good cup run at least for Fletch. Just get some positivity in that football club for once.
Fletcher's at the wheel.
I genuinely think if you'd have drawn Mac, I don't think I would have watched it. Because I don't think there's any good
Just out
option
of
for me
spite.
there for you to win. Because
Oh.
obviously being a blue, it'd have been funny to see you knocked out, but then again, you'd never hear the end of it on Twitter off Macclesfield fans. So it's never a good. It's not a good option.
Do you know, I love the love from the city. I really do,
Ah,
But that's football rivalry for you. Well, anyway, that's a rather extended Theatres of Dreams. We've had a lot to cover. Wherever you're watching your football this week, I hope you enjoy it. And we'll be back next week, focusing on the FA Cup, no doubt, and probably finding out if Darren Fletcher's still in a job. Maybe Harry will go in for the seat. Maybe they'll come for Harry. They'll be looking for a different Harry and come for our Harry Morell. Anyway, you've been listening to Erin, Bo Carroll, Harry Morell. This has been Rod Maxwell as well on the Theatres of Dreams. We'll be back next week. Take care. Enjoy. Bye bye.